XT Ultimate design recently launched in the global market as the world's first ever trifold smartphone, and it just landed here in South Africa, so I finally have my hands on one. First impressions? Wow. In its massive box, you'll find another box, and in that box, you'll of course find the device itself, as well as a hardshell fiber kickstand case, a charging cable, and a 66-watt charging brick. Being that this is the first phone like this, it's no surprise to see that the price is sky high, coming in at 70,000 Rand in South Africa and 3,500 euros across Europe. But keep in mind that gets you 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. Be sure to check out the description for any links and offers. That is no doubt a lot of money, but again, there is no other phone like this, and I can't even begin to imagine how much it costs to create such innovation. The Mate XT comes in just two different color options, black or red. I have the red model, but both variants have a vegan leather backplate with gold accents all around the device, from the metal frames to the branding to the twisted steel octagonal camera housing, which is the star of the show here. The camera module ring has a 3D structure known as the star diamond design. It has undergone 78 different processes to create a unique design, which offers a different pattern for each phone. When looking at the back design once the device is fully unfolded, you'll notice more leather and more gold accents, with a badge reading designed and crafted by Huawei. That's a nice little touch. When completely unfolded like this, the device is ridiculously thin, coming in at just 3.6 millimeters, but the part that holds the camera island is a bit thicker at 4.75 millimeters. It doesn't feel weird to hold, just something worth mentioning. Even at its thickest part, it's still thinner than a standard foldable phone like the Z Fold 6, but I guess things are more spread out on the XT. When folded up completely, it comes in at 12.8 millimeters, which is of course thicker than a standard phone, but when you consider that the Z Fold 6 is 12.1 millimeters and is a regular foldable, you start to realize how revolutionary the Mate XT really is. It is, however, as expected, quite heavy at 298 grams, and it is something that you will actually notice when you're holding it folded up completely in one hand, but not something that you'll really notice when you have it unfolded and holding it with two hands. But that weight is largely thanks to these two hinges over here. These two hinges are also made from stainless steel and finished in gold to continue its premium look. The Mate XT Ultimate design is the first foldable to introduce multi-drive precision tuning technology, which allows for a smoother and more seamless folding experience. And I must say, once you get used to it, it's rather simple to fold and unfold. The first hinge is inner folding with an embedded slide rail, and the second hinge is outer folding with a one-piece linkage. With two hinges going in opposite directions, you'd expect the creases to be different, but they're actually pretty similar, with both having subtle indents like any other foldable. The creases themselves are noticeable, but it's something that you'll get used to pretty quick, and they are still better than most other foldables out there which have much deeper creases. There are two creases though, but oddly enough, you never really touch them since your hand naturally rests on the two outer screens, and if you're flicking around in the center, there is no crease since they run in thirds. So I noticed that my fingers run on the creases less than traditional foldables, even though there's two creases here. Unlike standard foldables, the XT technically only has one screen, which bends in multiple ways, which means it does not have a proper cover screen, which is usually made from traditional glass and is more protected. When you use the cover screen on the XT, you are still using the ultra-thin glass foldable screen, so you'll have to be a little extra careful, though it is said to offer dual impact resistance. You also need to realize that when folded with a single or dual screen, the edge of the screen is exposed. It's nicely blacked out, but you wouldn't want to knock this against something. You have to remember that I am seriously nitpicking here, and at the end of the day, any shortcomings are forgiven in my eyes, considering this is the world's first triple folding smartphone, and the only one like it for now. At first I was a bit confused with why the XT is labeled tri-fold, considering it can only actually fold twice. But then I realized it's just a smart way of them saying that the screen can be used in 3 different modes. I guess tri-screen doesn't really roll off the tongue as nicely. So like I mentioned earlier, the Mate X-T technically only has one screen. It can just fold into 3 different displays, and for unlocking convenience, the side-mounted fingerprint sensor is on the right-hand side no matter how you fold up the phone. The always-on display is also visible regardless of which screen you end off on. We'll get into tech specs in a sec, but naturally the largest display mode is when the phone is completely unfolded, and for long sessions it can be a bit much to hold. Thankfully, Huawei have included a very useful kickstand case in the box, and the actual kickstand can rotate for when using the device in different orientations. The case looks a bit odd from the front, but at least the side of the case protects that bit of exposed screen. The kickstand rotations take some getting used to, but once you've got the hang of it, it works decently to keep the phone propped up. Another small hack I noticed is that you can use the actual folding part of the device to prop itself up, though I wouldn't really recommend it as it might leave some small scratches on that part of the display. What you need to keep in mind here is that this device is about the display first and foremost. And the technology behind it is impressive to say the least. I mean, did you ever expect that it would be possible to fit a 10-inch tablet in your pocket? But before we jump into that massive screen, let's explore the other 2 display modes. The first is single screen mode, aka the cover screen on traditional foldables. It comes in at 6.4 inches with an aspect ratio close to 20:9, just like regular smartphones, so it's a lot more usable when compared to other foldables with very narrow cover screens. Next up, we have the dual screen mode, much like the unfolded screen we see on other foldables. This one comes in at 7.9 inches and its aspect ratio is around 9.8:9, so almost a perfect square. And lastly, we have the triple screen mode, for that glorious full screen 10.2-inch experience, literally like putting a 10-inch tablet in your pocket. The cherry on top is that it has an aspect ratio of 16:11, which is a lot more practical than a regular foldable screen. For example, most YouTube videos are in a 16:9 aspect ratio, so you'll be getting much smaller black bars at the top and bottom of videos, and the viewable area is much larger than standard and foldable phones. This screen's real estate is literally the main reason to buy the XT Ultimate. It's a 10-bit 10.2-inch OLED display with a 3K resolution that pushes out 382 pixels per inch, around 1800 nits of peak brightness, has 1440Hz PWM dimming, a 90Hz refresh rate, and a 240Hz touch sampling rate. And it's the same specs regardless of which screen mode you're in, because they all share the same screen, whether it's used as a third, 2/3, or the whole panel. If you're looking to buy the Mate XT, it's probably due to that incredible display, and I wouldn't blame you. I mean, which other phone out there can stretch, well, fold all the way up to 10 inches. The global version of the Mate XT Ultimate design runs on EMUI 14.2. It's not exactly skinned on top of the latest version of Android, but it feels like it is. By now, it's no surprise that there are no Google services routed into the device, but there's a very simple workaround known as Gbox. You just have to download it from the Huawei app gallery and download the Play Store. Once downloaded, it adds the Play Store icon to your home screen, and from there you can download whatever your heart desires. You can use any Google app and even sign into your Google account without any issues. And hey, even Google Gemini works well. Software itself is pretty much the same as any other recent Huawei smartphone, but unfortunately there is no app drawer. Hopefully this gets addressed with a future software update, but the good news is that since this is a trifold, multitasking goes a long way. When in single screen mode, you'll see just one page of the home screen. When in dual screen mode, you'll see 2 pages with 4 recent apps added to the app dock. And when in triple screen mode, you'll still only see 2 pages, but they're more spaced out. When using the 10.2-inch screen, you can simply drag your current app to the top left corner of the screen and open another app to go on the opposite side to activate split screen. And since it has such a large display area, you can make one app pretty much the same size as a regular phone screen and the other app the same size as a regular foldable screen. It would have been nice to be able to have 3 apps side by side, but at least you can still bring in another app as a floating window and pin it to the side. There's no taskbar per se, but there is a side dock which pretty much works in the same way. You can also flip your apps around, rotate your display for different multitasking ratios, save the app combo on your home screen, and even fold the phone to different screen modes while still maintaining your split screen setup. That large screen space is also useful for being productive, reading books, or watching movies. And the cherry on top is that the built-in dynamic wallpapers adjust depending on the screen you're using, and if you enjoy customizing things, you can even set different wallpapers for each screen mode. The Huawei Mate X-T has a 5600 mAh battery, which is actually pretty large for a regular phone and even a foldable, but not necessarily for a tablet, because this is pretty much the same size as a tablet. But you have to remember that in order to keep the phone so slim when unfolded, they probably couldn't push that battery capacity much higher anyway. And I wouldn't really be too worried, since Huawei are known for incredible optimizations, which should help out quite a bit. And needless to say, we still get very fast charging here, 66 watt wire charging and 50 watt wireless charging. The device comes paired with 16 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM, 1 TB of UFS storage, and Huawei's in-house made 7nm Kirin 9010 chipset, the same CPU we see in the Pure 70 Ultra, which I was rather impressed with. It won't break any benchmark score records, but it can certainly handle some pretty demanding games such as Genshin Impact. Even on its massive 10.2-inch display, it managed to average around 60 FPS on maxed out settings, which I've only really seen before from flagship chipsets, so Huawei certainly have some tricks up their sleeve here. You can also switch between different screens while playing, but sometimes things aren't scaled correctly, and in certain games it will force a restart. That said, it's still impressive that it can make the switch mid-game, and at the end of the day, why play on anything other than that massive triple screen? Next up, I tested Real Racing 3, which has an unlimited frame cap, and I was once again very happy to see the Mate X-T achieve an average of 90 FPS, which is of course the max refresh rate of the phone. And lastly, I jumped into a Call of Duty Mobile multiplayer match, and pleased to see that it also hit 90 FPS most of the time. It was no surprise to find out that the Mate X-T lacks 5G in the global market, but at least we get dual SIM support, NFC, an IR blaster, a USB-C 3.1 port, and dual stereo speakers. So it might not house the latest flagship chipset, but the Mate X-T is no slouch when it comes to gaming performance, especially on that stunningly massive display. The X-T is kitted with a color spectrum sensor and a laser autofocusing system, but more importantly, it has a variable aperture main camera which can adjust between 10 different aperture stops from f1.4 to f4.0. And since it's a foldable, you can use one of the foldable screens as a preview screen so that you can take selfies with any of the rear cameras. The actual selfie camera is an 8 megapixel sensor, then there's a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto sensor for 5.5 times optical zoom, and a 12 megapixel ultrawide camera. The ultrawide camera outputs at 12.58 megapixels and can take some very decent macro shots as well as some very well detailed photos. The main sensor takes flagship level snaps even at a 2x zoom level. The periscope also outputs at 12.58 megapixels, and I was seriously impressed with the amount of detail it produced at its 5.5 times optical zoom level. Its digital zoom caps out at 50 times, and while it's not perfect, it's a lot more detailed than pretty much any other foldable around. Just like with other Huawei flagships, the Mate X-T also offers a few different X-Mage styles, and they can be used in many different modes with any of the lenses. These pics were taken in portrait mode with the main cam, and while vivid and bright look great, X-Mage Original is still my go-to for balance. When you flick to aperture mode, you can adjust between 4 different stops, but of course in Pro mode you can switch between 10 stops. The lower the aperture, the narrower the focus, meaning you can get a nice natural depth without the need for a portrait mode. It was loads of fun to take selfies with the rear cameras, and while the actual selfie camera takes decent snaps too, results are nowhere close to those rear sensors. I was rather impressed with how the 8 megapixel selfie camera performed at night, but the rear main camera takes insanely detailed selfies. The ultra-wide sensor produces a decent photo at night too, but again that main camera is fantastic, especially in terms of color accuracy and dynamic range. I was also very pleased with the pictures taken from the periscope sensor at night and was blown away by how well it handled light noise. All three sensors can take very stable 4K 60fps video during the day, and while the ultra-wide sensor tends to oversaturate things, the main sensor once again strikes a very nice balance in terms of color accuracy and detail. When recording with the main in aperture mode, you are limited to just 1080p resolution and 4 aperture stops, but when flicking to Pro mode video, you can shoot at 4K 60fps and switch between 10 different stops, which is insane to say the least.
What's up guys, this is TechNick recording a 4K 30fps selfie video on the brand new Huawei Mate X-T. At least we still get 4K selfie video here, even though we can use the back cams as selfie cams, which we'll get to in a sec. Nevertheless, in terms of selfie cam video recording, let me know your thoughts on the video and microphone performance.
Using the rear cameras for selfie video has the ultra-wide again oversaturate things, but the main camera adds a very nice layer of natural depth, boasts impeccable detail, and is extremely accurate when it comes to tonal range. The main camera isn't perfect when recording selfie video at night, but it looks quite a lot better than the ultra-wide and selfie sensors. The ultra-wide camera doesn't take the absolute best video at night, but most other phones' ultra-wide sensors struggle with night ultra-wide recording too, while the main sensor on the other hand minimizes noise grain nicely, packs in great detail, well-balanced exposure, and handles light noise very decently. Unlike the Huawei Pure series devices, the Mate X-T is not focused on camera performance, but somehow they still managed to squeeze in a very good foldable camera system. They honestly didn't have to try so hard, but I mean, I'm not complaining. The Huawei Mate X-T Ultimate design might have some shortcomings, but honestly not that many considering it's the first of its kind. Yes, it's expensive, but standard foldables are already expensive, and those only have one hinge. This has 2 hinges and 3 display modes with a tablet-sized main screen. Just that in itself is enough to make anyone with the financial means want to buy one. I mean, it will no doubt be a massive head turner, and for those who can't afford it, it's still a remarkable thing to see. I was not expecting so much innovation after years of the same thing, over and over again. I'm honestly relieved to see a brand push the boundaries of smartphone technology. As always, this is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.